Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Chris Fredrickson. As you know, I am chairman of the 2020 Group worldwide, which is now the world's largest membership organization for small and medium-sized firms. And it is my absolute pleasure today to welcome David Strother. You are not a CPA.
Correct. Background was in banking, and over a period of time in the 1980s when banks began to diversify their services into financial services, that became of interest to me, and then one thing led to another, became independent, and then it ultimately became the most logical place for me to house was in an environment that is the most relevant to financial services, because everything that is in financial services will occur on a tax return at some point in time.
So you then affiliated with a CPA firm. That was 10 years ago, and you have built what most of us observers see as one of the absolute dominant CPA wealth management practices. Give us an idea of how much revenue you generate currently from financial services.
Well, I mean, from the beginning, it was a nice marriage because we didn't economically need each other. All sides of the transaction were already healthy. What we didn't realize is that we would double and double again and double again. And at this point, we generate over $5.5 million of recurring revenue from financial services annually.
And that does not include the revenue on the CPA side of the house.
That's correct. Revenue on the CPA side of the house is, 2.5 times that.
So why don't you give us an idea of why you think CPA should be in this business?
Because the alternative is so bad for the client.
What does that mean?
And what that means is that the clients are going to buy things that are in the financial service arena. They're going to buy insurance. They're going to buy risk management products. They're going to buy stocks. They're going to buy bonds. They're going to buy mutual funds. They're going to have retirement plans. They're going to do that. It's whether the CPA can be at the top of the advice chain relative to competent, unbiased, independent advice, or whether they will provide that, but then have to be dependent upon a vendor to execute. And whenever you enter the arena of vendor having the actual compensated relationship with the client to execute your CPA advice, you have the potential for a fly to get in the ointment. And the fly gets in the ointment a lot. So sometimes CPAs would say, I want to be totally independent, and so the client knows there's no compensation other than just my billable hour. That's great if the financial service industry outside the CPA environment was filled with right-minded, ethically unimpeachable people. But it's dominated by salespeople that will try to take whatever the CPA says and then enhance it to their financial benefit. There is no way the CPA can keep that from happening except to eliminate its possibility, and you eliminate its possibility by bringing that service in-house.
And how much liability or risk is there by bringing it in-house? Is it more or less risky than what we do as CPAs?
We think at this point it's much less risky, again, because the alternative is you do not have significant control on the execution when it's done by other vendors, where you do have control when you are in control of not just the advice piece, but the execution piece. Early on, some CPAs, even in our firm, worried, well, if we do this and we do any act as an accountant, we know with certainty that we have factual, black and white, credible resources to back up why we did it. let's use investments as an example. Well, what if we take a great tax client and now we do significant investments with them and there's a recession? What if the client then fires us because they're mad, because they have adverse market losses? And then they say, and while I'm at firing you as a financial service person, I'm going to fire you as my CPA because it really just makes me mad. And that, until we got beyond that, there's really no answer to that. It either will happen or it won't happen. What we found is the CPA firm has actually grown just on the CPA side because of financial services, and there has not, that threat has just simply not happened. And it hasn't happened because, again, what is the alternative? We are providing independent, unbiased, appropriate advice. As long as we do that, regardless of the outcome of that advice, it was still appropriate. And then it's up to us, just us on the tax side, to let the client know this is still the best thing. Your alternative is to go be thrown with the wolves of just vendor relationships.